Hi, I'm Logan, the 64th Gear Jammer Skeele, and I have a news flash for you. You may have heard by now that Yellow Freight has filed for bankruptcy on July 31st, 2023. I guess that's old news now. But what you may not have heard about is the history of the third largest trucking company in North America. Who started the company? How it grew to be the third largest trucking company, and why yellow was chosen color for their rolling stock. Side note, guys, check out farmtoysandmore.com for your next die-cast truck. In 1906, the Yellow Freight Company was started by Grover Cleveland. No, not the president, but Grover Cleveland, or Cleve Harrell, when he started his yellow cab company with a horse-drawn hack and a team of horses. After a year, Cleve found that people preferred to ride in an automobile, so he bought a Model T Ford. After World War I, he bought 2 more cars. In 1918, Harrell painted one of his cars yellow and trademarked the name Yellow Cab in Oklahoma. By the way, this is not the origins of the Yellow Cab Company of Chicago. That will be covered in a future video, so subscribe so you don't miss it. Expansion of Cleve's business required capital, so he formed a partnership with A.J. Harrell, his brother. A.J. had been successful in the operation of a horse and mule business during World War I. Cleve and A.J. started a bus line that traveled between Oklahoma City and Tulsa. This business lasted a short time and was soon sold. Next, Cleve established a city bus line serving the southern part of Oklahoma City. Cleve named it the Capitol Hill Bus Line. Apparently, operating a bus line didn't agree with Cleve. So, after operating the Capitol Hill Bus Line for several months, he sold it to the Oklahoma Street Railway Company. Shortly after, Cleve and A.J. dissolved their partnership in 1924. A.J. Harrell traded his cabs for trucks and established Yellow Transit to serve small businesses and manufacturers. Moving on to 1944, A.J. Harrell sold Yellow Transit to an ownership group led by George E. Powell. The company was renamed Yellow Transit Freight Lines. The company remained small until 1952. During this time, Yellow helped pioneer the concept of consolidating small freight shipments into trailer loads, known today as less than truckload freight or LTL freight. Now, this is getting interesting. Through mergers and acquisitions, Yellow Transit Freight grew bigger and bigger. If you remember, this was during the period of regulations that required trucking companies to get government permission from the ICC to expand their service territories. The easiest way to expand was to buy or acquire another truck line. In 1952, D.S. Reamer and Frank F. Reamer founded Reamer Express Lines with a route between Winnipeg and Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Wait, why am I talking about Reamer Express Lines? I guess I'll get back to Reamer in a moment. Moving to 1965, Yellow doubled its size when it paid roughly $13 million for Watson Wilson Transportation Systems. Companies often change their names and Yellow is no exception. So, in 1968, Yellow modified its name to Yellow Freight System. By 1969, Yellow's sales were topping $200 million, and Yellow became the third largest trucking company in the United States. A new day dawned in 1980 when President Jimmy Carter deregulated the trucking industry. The result presented a series of problems for Yellow, along with most all trucking companies. The first problem came in 1982 when Roadway, one of Yellow's competitors, chose to discount its prices, as did other competing truck lines. This left Yellow's profit line to fall. Meanwhile, Roadway Express continued to grow. By 1984, Roadway Services acquired Spartan Express Inc., Nationwide Carriers Inc., and Roberts Express Inc. What? Wait, Roadway? What does Roadway's growth have to do with Yellow Freight? Meanwhile, Yellow restructured itself by increasing its LTL freight contracts to encompass nearly 2/3 of its business. And in 1985, Yellow also expanded its number of terminals to 600. Now, Yellow was represented in every state except Alaska. In 1987, Yellow finally created a terminal in Alaska, making it a true 50-state carrier. Viking Freight was acquired by Roadway in 1988. Viking Freight was the largest regional carrier in the western states. More Roadway acquisitions in a Yellow Freight timeline video. Yellow Freight Mexicana was formed in 1991. The same year, Yellow increased its Canadian presence. Here is where Yellow really got into financial trouble. Yellow Freight System embarked on a massive restructuring by creating new distribution centers across the country to better serve customers. Growth is necessary, but can be very painful if not controlled properly. In 1992, Yellow underwent another name change to Yellow Corporation. Management thought bigger would be better, but it's not always best. Already the second largest LTL carrier, Yellow started to acquire more trucking companies. In 1993, Yellow enters the Eastern Regional Market by acquiring Preston Trucking Company of Maryland. And they entered the Southern LTL freight market by acquiring Saia Motor Freight Lines. Skipping ahead to December of 2003, Yellow acquired Roadway Corp. Now it makes sense why these mentions of Roadway buying their competitors in a Yellow Freight timeline video. The purchase included Roadway's national operation, Roadway Express, their Northeast LTL operation, New Penn, and the Canadian LTL operation, Reamer Express. This gave Yellow the right to call itself a international company. Also, at this time, the company name was changed to Yellow Roadway Corp. In 2005, Yellow Roadway acquired Chicago, Illinois-based LTL company, USF Corporation, and its subsidiaries. Restructuring again, Yellow renamed itself YRC Regional Transportation. Yellow Roadway wanted a worldwide footprint. To this end, Yellow Roadway entered the Chinese market, and in 2005, the company purchased half of Chinese freight forwarding company JHJ International Transportation Company Limited. 2006, Yellow Roadway Corp., the parent company of Roadway, Yellow, and other subsidiaries, changed its name to YRC Worldwide. Geez, why couldn't they just come up with one name and stick with it? In August of 2008, YRC bought a 65% share of Chinese Shanghai Jiayu Logistics Company. Could this have been an acquisition too far? Monetary losses began to pile up in 2008 and 2009. In September of 2011, the company completed financial restructuring that wiped out shareholder equity. All employees, Teamsters included, took massive pay cuts to keep YRC in business. As a part of the restructuring, YRC sold part of Glenmore, including the Carlisle, Pennsylvania terminal, to Celadon. Not good. Selling assets, employee pay cuts, wiping out shareholders' equity. Those are all signs of a seriously troubled company. But these actions managed to hold Yellow together through the 2008 financial crisis and keep trucking. Sadly, it was only a band-aid that another economic disruption would tear off. Beginning of the end for Yellow. Enter the federal government. Go figure. The federal government gets involved and the fate of a company is sealed. On July 1, 2020, the U.S. Department of the Treasury announced that the federal government would lend YRC Worldwide $700 million as an emergency loan under the CARES Act. In exchange for the emergency loan, the Department of the Treasury announced that the U.S. taxpayers would acquire a 29.6% equity stake in the company. This loan kept Yellow alive through the economic chaos of 2020. Fortunately for Yellow, the economic chaos didn't last long for the trucking industry, and freight kept rolling in strong. In 2021, times must have been better as YRC changed its name back to Yellow Corporation. Another name change. Was this necessary with a shaky economic future on the horizon? After all, a name change is accompanied with lots of money spent on unnecessarily by rebranding the tractors and trailers. Thousands of those tractors and trailers. This brings us to the present. Economic conditions can change rapidly, and the trucking industry went from having too much freight to handle in 2022 to having to fight each other for freight in 2023. This time, there was no one to step in and bail Yellow out, and those band-aids got torn off, leaving Yellow to bleed out. In July of 2023, Yellow was in the process of shutting down, and Yellow filed for bankruptcy on July 31st, 2023. This ends the sad story of once the third largest trucking company in North America. Bigger is not better. This should be a warning to the largest companies that there is a natural limit to how big they can grow before they topple and fall. Now with that, let's hop on over to the quarry and look at a Volvo day cab and pup for Yellow Freight. And here we go. This is one of the many releases that have been done by Yellow. They go all the way back into Winross. There was a lot of Yellow releases under Winross. Then they came into PEM. There were some Ertl releases of yellow. And then there was even some DCP first gear releases when it was YRC. So yeah, yellow has had a lot of models, and this is just one of them. It is their Volvo VN610 day cab in a single axle. These were not the most detailed models, but they were great in their day. They were way better than anybody else's. So they set the standard, and personally, they've got enough detail for me. They've got awesome graphics. You can see the truck number up on top. You can see the yellow and the yellow transportation logo on the door and the US DOT number. The color is their Swamp Holly Orange. It has Volvo tampoed up there on the fender just like it should. It's got individual jewel style headlights, turn signals tampoed. It's got the Volvo logo in the center of the grille. It has hard ABS plastic windows with an interior. It's got a dashboard, steering wheel, seats, all the detail you really need. It's got two nice mirrors. Now, sometimes they did chrome plate them, but yellow was not really fancy, so they just went with painted aluminum. It's got the fuel tanks there. It does have on the back, you can see it has the chrome exhaust stack, brake lights. It has mud flaps and DOT striping. Nice tread pattern on the tires. They're soft rubber on plastic rims that are painted in gray on this one. You got your drive shaft, your differential, air brakes, and suspension, bottom of the engine, and that detail. These here were a great model. I was always a fan of the PEM. To me, it was the perfect balance of quality, detail, and price. These new ones are getting crazy, and you're not really getting a whole lot more detail. Yeah, you get the opening hood that this doesn't have and the detail of the engine underneath, but I'm not sure that justifies the cost. You also get the positionable wheels, which, by the way, make it so the thing doesn't roll straight like these straight axles do. This set did have another pup and a converter dolly, but they are all packed up. It's got great graphics of yellow on the side. I mean, aside from Winross, PEM was the next best at graphics. Their paint process and tampos was awesome for there, because that's a tampo. You got your DOT stripes on the side of the trailer. You got some placard holders there. Single axle on this pup. Landing gear, it doesn't go up and down. That would have been nice if they had upgraded that. But it has a nice solid all die-cast base, die-cast top. Soft rubber tires back there. It has mud flaps. Now the door doesn't roll up. There's another thing that could have been updated over the years and kept them alive, is put a real roll-up door like DCP did. It's got the yellow name, yellow logo, and their phone number. Also their website. DOT striping, latch, brake lights, wide turns, and a placard holder. Also your upper DOT lights. Like, really and truly, if you look at this model, it has most all of the detail you need. Sure, there's a few things that could be a little bit better that would make it easier, but overall, I don't see that this model needs that much. That these guys really had in the best balance for cost versus detail. It showed everything you wanted, and it showed it all off, and it made a very good advertising model for the companies. These new ones are so expensive, it's going to be hard for companies to justify the cost of the runs. And this is the PEM, the Precision Engineered Models, 1/64 scale die-cast replica of a yellow transportation truck. It's a 1/64 scale Volvo VN610 day cab with single axle and the high roof fairing and a 28.5 foot pup. In 1929, A.J. Harrell enlisted the help of E.L. DuPont de Nemours and Company to improve highway safety by determining the vehicle color that would be most visible on the nation's highways. After the review was completed, it was determined that the color of Swamp Holly Orange would be the most visible at the greatest distance. Swamp Holly Orange became the color used on all Yellow Freight Company tractors. I'm Logan, the 64th Gear Jammer Skeele, and this has been another episode of Toy Talk. Please go on and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next episode.